Hi guys, Lisa here. Today I am doing something that I'm not entirely sure how to label it because I was thinking of maybe making it a will it paper episode, but I felt like it wouldn't be really fair because the question whether or not it will paper wasn't really a question for me. I am pretty convinced it will turn into paper. And of course the thing I'm talking about is toilet paper rolls. It's a kind of trash we all have laying around. So I thought it would be interesting to actually see what happens if you try to make paper out of it. It is basically just cardboard. So the question or not will it paper isn't really there. But of course it's gonna go a certain way, it's gonna look a certain way. And I really just want to show you guys the options that are out there when we're talking about recycling paper. You can recycle so many things and things you just have at home yourself. And if you want to do it for the first time, if you're trying this with kids, I feel like toilet paper rolls are perfect to start with. So if you want to see how to turn toilet paper rolls into paper, please keep on watching. Let's go.
Okay, so here we have 10 toilet paper rolls that I've collected for this video. We will need to be blending this, and to do this we first have to make them soft enough. So I'm starting with cutting them into pieces. I first cut them open, then into strips, and then those strips into pieces. Depending on the strength of your blender, you can cut them into bigger or smaller pieces. And I do this with all 10 of the rolls. Once I have everything cut up, I add hot water so they can become nice and soft. I then set it aside for a few hours. Now the rolls are ready to be turned into a pulp. I add around half at first to the blender and blend it up with some water until smooth. Then I strain most of the water out until I get a nice wet pulp, and I add that to a container to store it. I then repeat this with the rest of the pieces, and I end up with this container of pulp. With this we can now start to make our paper. I add a handful of the pulp to a container of water and make sure to mix this well. This pulp is more sticky than other paper pulp, so I spend more time making sure all the lumps are out. I then take my mold and deckle and scoop up the floating pulp. I lift up the deckle and it reveals a really nice and smooth formed sheet. I make sure I have a piece of fabric, cotton in my case, ready on the table. I then flip the mold on top of the fabric and press it in. I squeeze out the excess water with a sponge. I can then lift up the frame so the piece of wet paper is now properly transferred to the cloth. I move it to a hard surface so I can safely move it to a drying area later. I keep adding little bits of pulp and repeat the paper shaping process until I run out of pulp. Once that's done, I hang them up to dry overnight. I ended up making around 15 pages. The next day we can start to take care of the dried paper. I took them off of the drying rack and I can now peel each sheet of paper from the fabric. The paper looks very sturdy and smooth, and it's a uniform color, and I'm honestly quite impressed with the results. Let's take off the rest. Now I am left with a nice stack of paper, but you can see they are not very flat, so we need to fix this. This of course means it's time to get my lovely book press. I divide the paper into 2 stacks and place them in the middle of the press. I then close it up nice and tight and wait for a day or so. Alright, a day has passed. Let's go and look at the flat pages. Here is our nice and flat stack. Looks great. I think it's time we test the paper's capabilities. So let's start with the usual, ballpoint. I always suggest to only use ballpoint to write on recycled paper. It's just the safest and nicest in my opinion. And as you can see, it writes perfectly fine on this paper too. Now let's try to write with my glass pen and some ink. It's pressed minimally, as you can see, but then when you flip it over, you do see it bleeds quite a bit. Now with pencil, I saw a comment of someone saying I should try a different type of pencil that's less soft, which might work better on recycled paper, but I had already recorded this, and as you see, this specific pencil doesn't particularly work great on the paper, but it's not the worst. Recycled paper is also just a lot softer than the paper you might be used to. Now, to try to erase it, eraser on recycled paper, it always works, but it takes away the top fibers of the page, so it kind of leaves a scar. Now let's try acrylic paint. I sincerely apologize for using this brush. I for some reason could not find a better one. My art area is currently more like an art pile, so this is the only thing I could find. Acrylic paint actually works pretty nicely on this paper and is in general one of my favorite materials to use on recycled paper. As you can see, it also does not bleed at all. Watercolors, however, are a completely different story and I would not suggest to use it at all. It doesn't go down very smoothly and it also bleeds quite significantly. But overall, I would call this paper definitely usable. So I think it's time we turn this paper into a functional journal. Here are the pages I picked out. I decided to go with 12 pages so I can make 4 signatures with 3 papers each. I take each signature and fold it in half. This can sometimes be hard to do neatly if you leave the deckled edges like this and not cut it, which I have decided to do. I use a bone folder to flatten the fold. I then use a template to poke holes in each signature in the correct places. It then looks something like this. Now we can actually start binding. I measure out the right amount of linen thread and thread it through a curved needle. Then I take my first signature and start weaving through it. I am using the French link stitch. This is my favorite stitch for exposed binding and I think that will look really cool with this journal. I bind each signature on top of the other and link the stitches together so you get this cool cross pattern. I can totally do a more detailed tutorial in a separate video soon if you guys want one. I create a knot at the end and cut off the excess. And that is all, we now have a finished journal. Here it is. You can see the stitches from the French link stitch on the side. It's fully functional and the paper looks so good, it's so smooth. Can you believe this used to be toilet paper rolls?
And there you go, we turned 10 toilet paper rolls into a functioning journal. It still surprises me every time. I know it's my slogan, junk to journal, but the fact that you could take really junk and turn it into a journal or any other usable thing. Whatever you want to do with paper, it's all possible. There are beautiful things to be made out of trash, so please try it out yourself. If you do, please tag me, and if you have any questions, you can comment down below. I'll try to answer as much as I can. And if you want to see more of me, you can follow me on TikTok and Instagram at Nevermindlisa on both. And please don't forget to subscribe if you like my content. And for now, I hope to see you next time. Bye bye!